For my audience today, I have Kylie Thompson, Aaron Chapman, Lexi Verner, Annalise Minnick, and Sage Knowlton. Are undocumented immigrants granted rights just as normal citizens are? The answer to that question is no. Undocumented immigrants are not granted the same rights as American citizens are. This is because undocumented immigrants lack proper legal status that is required in the United States. This means that they have not gone through the proper immigration process to be fully considered a citizen of the country. Because of this status, this limits immigrants' access to different rights and benefits. The purpose of my speech is to inform you of the pros and cons of rights of undocumented immigrants. I am credible to discuss this topic because I have done the proper research and have spoken to many powerful stakeholders surrounding this topic. Though immigrants have not fully gained legal access, there are many different pros and cons that they provide in our country, and that is what I will be discussing today. The pros and cons I will be discussing today include the pros of the increase of tax revenue, as well as the increase in labor force in the United States. The cons include the exposure of outside gangs to the United States and how racial profiling and discrimination has risen. The pros and cons of undocumented immigrants can often be seen as controversial and hard to debate. However, it is important that the public is informed of how everyone can be affected in every way possible. I will first begin with the discussion of the increase in tax revenue due to undocumented immigrants. The Bipartisan Policy Center of November 27, 2024, quotes Jack Malde on how legal and illegal immigrants impact America's national budget outlook. He says, while immigration increases some federal spending, most immigrants are net contributors to the national balance sheet because they pay more in taxes and then they claim in benefits. Immigrants add to federal revenues because most immigrants employed by U.S. business pay federal income and payroll taxes. Immigration contributes to increased federal spending when they claim federal benefits, although in many classes, laws significantly limit their eligibility. Immigrants indirectly impact the nation's fiscal outlook through the contributors to their labor force and economic productivity. So, because of the increase in tax revenue, we now know as a country we have made it able to make more unsustainable tax cuts more permanent. It is important to note that the data used in the article is combined with legal and illegal immigrants. Though both groups are accounted for, it is also important to realize that some of this information may have changed over the last few months. My next point I will be discussing is how immigrants have increased our labor force in the United States. The Pro Market Labor Research website of January 8th of 2025 quotes Carlo Medici on how the increase of immigrants in the United States has also increased the labor force. He says, for every 100 immigrants entering the average U.S. country, union membership increases by nearly 20 workers. Without immigration, the average union density between the 1900s and 1920s have been approximately 22% lower. Though the impact of immigration has affected everyone, labor-wise, in many different ways, immigrants have also been able to form different work here in the United States, so they're able to provide for themselves and their families if needed. Though immigrants have been able to help our country in many different ways, there are also different negatives that we as a country have faced because of the overflow of immigrants in the United States. One of these negative effects includes the United States being overexposed to different gangs in our country. The Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention quotes that many different officers in the article on the influence of gang migration and gang proliferation. The article states that migrant gangs members may stimulate the growth of gangs and gang membership through a variety of processes, such as recruiting locals to establish a branch of the gang in previously unaffected areas. This causes the stimulation of gangs in different areas where they may become prominent in the area, causing trouble and harm. An important issue to note about migrant gang members is the crime patterns. Migrants are often seen as contributing to the increased level of crime in an area, as well as the seriousness of the criminal activity. The crimes may include things such as drive-by shootings, firebombings, carjackings, and robberies. Any crime against anyone or anything dangerous. It is also important to realize that ever since the rise of migration, there has also been an increase of crime rate by 4.5% in the United States. Safety and equality should be the utmost important to the citizens of the United States. This is why it is important to realize that racial profiling and discrimination happening in the United States since the rise of immigrants. Some immigrants find it difficult to uphold jobs in the select areas because of the profiling and discrimination that may come up depending on the workforce and the immigrants that are trying to enter. The network of January 2025 quotes Jose Antonio Vargas on immigration, labor, and discrimination. He says a noticeable pattern emerges throughout our nation's history of immigration. When the economy needs immigrant labor, restrictions decline and immigrants are welcomed in the country. However, if circumstances change and immigrant labor is no longer needed, the U.S. position of immigration shifts to restriction, deportations, and a xenophobic rhetoric. This just goes to show that immigration in the United States are often taken advantage in different ways, especially when it comes to the workforce. As I conclude my discussion on the topic of the rights of undocumented immigrants, I would like everyone to understand and grasp that the purpose of this speech is to inform the public of the pros and cons of immigration and how everyone involved may be affected. Everyone deserves tax benefits, everyone deserves to be able to work, everyone deserves to work without feeling discriminated against, and everyone deserves to feel safe from crimes and gangs. Immigrants have just as many rights as the United States citizens as long as they approach the process in the correct way. Thank you. Was it long?